Children have to be protected at all costs. If you're not making an effort, that should be a problem.
Hey everyone, thank you again for coming back to another recording of Foul Ball Safety Now news and talks. We are in the middle of October and we're just getting ready for the World Series when it comes to actual baseball being played right now that I'm aware of. At Foul Ball Safety Now, we've been following what's been happening on the 30 professional clubs and 169 other professional clubs, affiliates of the major leagues and other leagues, which makes up about 199 ballparks. There's one incident that took place a couple of weeks ago. It's still very fresh in my mind because of the scenario. What happened was there was a player who hit a ball for an infield single, but the player's bat broke and made its way over the net. As a viewer of the game, it was Seattle and Detroit in one of the rounds of the playoffs. You didn't know the broken bat, which is very common in Major League Baseball. You see bats breaking a lot. But you didn't know at the time that the broken bat, big part of the bat, made its way over the net. And how did we all discover that? When they were breaking to commercial during a change of pitching, the announcer, or at least the visual producer who is running the replays, shows a replay of the bat coming into the seats from the seating perspective. And it was very scary because you even had the announcer saying on top of the video, "Yikes, look out." Almost saying like that this is also part of the many things happening at the playoff game. You have a live crowd of 50,000 people or more or less making a lot of noise. You have, fans thinking about what's happening next in the game, if it's a close game and the drama of the game playing out. And then you also have this broken bat, which the camera person and the announcer made also into almost like what was happening in the moment. So there was an opportunity, certainly at that point in time, to say, wait a second, what did we just all see here? What did America just all watch together? They saw a broken bat coming into the seats like a boomerang, and they also heard the announcer say, "Yikes, look out." America did not respond because Brianna and I have been looking on social media and no one commented on the matter. And I guess the excitement and the intoxication of the playoff game was so it did not grab the attention of the American viewer at home. And hopefully it didn't hurt or hit anyone, but why are bats flying into seats? Why is business as usual in 2025 allowing broken bats coming in seats like boomerangs potentially could pierce your heart? Why is that business as usual in 2025? It's a head scratcher. I'm the only one scratching right now. But I think once we finally show this in its context, I believe others clearly will jump in. It may be the non-baseball fan that jumps in on this sooner than the baseball fan. But so far, the baseball fan has not expressed any interest in commenting on it. But it's at least there. We have the video. We have the sound bite of the announcer saying, "Yikes, look out." So we're going to address that. We're also following up at Foul Ball Safety Now. Please, everyone, look at the website. You may have missed over the last 6 years. I've been working with Brendan, the journalist, for 6 years now, and we've compiled so much information from press releases to interviews to injury reports. Everything we've done, we've been able to share with people on the website. Specific interviews we have not put out there as of yet, but we are confident at some point in time we will be putting out all these interviews, maybe in the form of a book for an effective conversation. We also believe this is the beginning of an effective conversation, our recordings. So please, everyone, look at foul ball safety now. The other matter, as I was saying, what we're looking into, I want people to see the Queens College investigation going on. 3 letters we put out to Queens College in the last few months. The last one was in the beginning of September. It's about time now that Brendan and I draft another letter to Queens College. This time, I think we're going to copy the NCAA on this. This is a matter of a student athlete who's feeling a lot of stress because the student athletes are playing in an environment where their practice balls and game balls are making it over the side and potentially hitting elementary school students. And one student athlete alerted me to the fact that he is worried about the matter and his teammates are worried about the matter. And people can see that the letters I wrote to Queens College addresses their situation, yes, but there's a bigger picture. There's many other schools and professional ballparks where balls regularly fly over the sides, just like these students are concerned about. And we know that situation in Modesto, California. People can see at Foul Ball Safety Now, the tab that says Unknown Modesto. You'll click on there and you'll see 3 letters we wrote to the Modesto newspaper over the summer. People should have been alerted to this in July of 23 after, unfortunately, a woman outside the ballpark was struck in the head and she can't work anymore. So we didn't know about this, but we were contacted late spring from the attorneys representing the woman who was struck in the head in July of 2023. Her trial was supposedly coming up this past summer. And we learned a few months ago that her case was settled. And nobody in Modesto knew about it, and may never know about it, that a woman was struck in the head just outside the ballpark in July of 23. And why wasn't there an announcement for 2 years for people to potentially walk around the outside of the ballpark with some kind of an umbrella? But again, we raise questions. We want to bring this to people's attention. There's a lot of news that Brendan and I continue to produce every week at Foul Ball Safety Now. So all of our new recordings will keep everyone up on what we're in the middle of doing and things that people need to check out for the first time or learn about themselves for the first time. Learn for themselves. All right. So, Brianna, I think we could bring on our guest and see where our conversation goes today. How you doing today, Brianna?
I'm doing great, Jordan. This is very powerful subject matter that we're going to be discussing today, and it's a very important conversation. So, without further ado, I'm going to bring on our guest, Mason Kenny. He is a creator and voice actor. Welcome, Mason.
Hi, happy to be here.
How you doing, Mason?
Nice and sunny, hasn't snowed yet. I'm very happy about that. So you've been at this for about 6 years, you said.
Yes.
Has there been any noticeable change or progression that has made you happy or any of your partners? Has there been much of a change either in response or just in general public knowledge?
There really hasn't been any sort of organized approach from Major League Baseball or management from any of these clubs, whether it be the 30 MLB clubs or their 120 affiliates. And then there's another 49 partner league teams that I've been following. There have been some sort of upgrades, improvements, if you will, but not to the degree where I can say then, well, they've made some improvements. But my concern is that each individual ballpark may have done some kind of an improvement, but on what standard, on whose standard did they do the improvement on? And was there an outside agency that had anything to do with that upgrade or that improvement? And my guess, and I don't have any proof to think otherwise, is no. And it's still a place where people are coming in 2025 where it demonstrates that people clearly are in the dark. There's a 2019 video from ESPN. For a little while, I thought this was going to move the needle because that was about the time I got involved. This video shows, we call it Exhibit A on the website, and it demonstrates like a thread of line drives going just past end of dugouts and making serious damage to human beings and children. And we know that in 2025, there were still at least 30 to 40 cities with no netting past end of dugouts, which demonstrates that this horrific video, which saw the light of day in 2019, got a lot of views, got a lot of comments, but mostly from knucklehead baseball fans. I think 80% of them sounded ridiculous. The other 20% of them sounded intelligent about a video that demonstrated that maybe human beings should not be sitting in certain sections. They were very slow to follow MLB and their affiliates. At the time, they may have been at the time more than 40 of their affiliates plus another 30. There may have been about 70 professional clubs that went from 2019 to 2024 without extended netting. This year, most of the MLB affiliates, most of the MLB affiliates have upgraded. So that number from 40 is down to a few. So that's good. But why did it take for this horrific video from 2019 to go 5 years? MLB, their billion-dollar organization, 30 of their teams pay the salaries of 120 teams, affiliates. So why are there more than 40 of those affiliates up until this year going over 5 years without extended netting? It just raises questions. At the end of the day, it's not to my standard until an industry or a netting council to determine if we're good to go inside and outside.
Yeah, I agree, especially because looking at the website, events as recent as September of this year, like the Red Sox reporter got hit in the arm with the foul ball. It seems like it's still going. You know, a decrease is good, but it's just general safety. Like with cars, with anything else, they create regulations for a reason. So it should definitely be more widespread from the smaller sections to the big sections.
We do believe that should have been the case years and years and years ago. We believe that if baseball took all their information they knew after every winter to evaluate the data from the year before, why not tell us what we could expect in the year ahead? But they didn't. They weren't required to do so. There was a boy that died at Dodger Stadium in 1970. Was it appropriate at that time to tell everyone in those sections that this is a regular thing where balls will come by your head at these speeds? And do you really want to be subjected to that? Because in this case, it hit the person. Exhibit A1 at Foul Ball Safety Now takes a look at a report published by a publication called 538 in 2019. The journalist I've been with now, Brendan, now for 6 years, we took a look at that report from 2019. We put our own spin on it, or we incorporated all of our latest research, and people can almost see for themselves. They could almost go through their memories because wondering about, wow, we could have been exposed to all of this, and may ask, once they see how many hundreds of thousands of foul balls showed up at these professional ballparks. You see, it's the 30 major league teams that have 2,400 plus games a year, but there's also 14,000 other professional games in addition to those 2,400 games plus games. And MLB has an average of 53 foul balls per game in 2019. And some of these professional leagues probably also have an average of 53 foul balls per game because it's also a 9 inning game. But we cut that number in half. because we didn't want to inflate or make it look like we could be exaggerating anything. So we cut down the number to 25. And once people see that on Exhibit A1, you'll go 14,000 times 25. That's 350,000 foul balls per year. And people, hopefully, once they get curious enough, they're going to say, well, just how many of those 350,000 really did come at 100 into those exposed areas past end of dugouts? And that's a great question. They give you some indication, the percentages of balls that go into the hot zones, but I think the inquirer is going to want to know a little bit more. The inquiring lawyer, inquiring mind's going, well, since baseball is tracking data for the last decade or two, let's just find out just how many were coming at 100 towards the babies. And then we could start having a real discussion about what was really happening. I hope people are curious to learn about things they may have missed, and we just want to get them caught up to speed.
These incidents are happening as recently as September this year, as recently as this month, October of this year. And the incident report is up on the website at foulballsafetynow.com for anybody who wants to check it out and get up to speed on the self reported fan injuries that we have learned about this year. We can't really say whether the injuries have decreased with the netting extensions because the MLB has never been required to report fan injuries. And anytime an independent party tries to conduct research, they don't really comply. So we're actually finding more incidents than ever now through the implementation of social media where people are self reporting their injuries, posting pictures of their black eyes, and sometimes worse, and saying, "This happened to me." And a lot of times on these posts, you're seeing the comment section filled with other people who are also sharing their stories. So maybe 30 years ago, if this had happened to somebody, it was sort of up to the journalist. If the journalist wanted to run a story about it, then maybe people would find out. But if the journalist didn't want to, then maybe nobody would find out apart from the victim's close circle of family and friends, because that's where all the power lie. But now people can post online and the algorithm can allow it to be viewed and to be seen, and more people can share what's happened to them, and we're finding out more than ever before now.
All right. So it sounds like the exposure itself, as horrible as it is, the exposure through social media, the accessibility at the very least is making it more recognized. Do you guys have a hope? Are you trying to strike into the middle and get things to expand out and improve? Or are you doing like local venues, smaller places, smaller stadiums, trying to get them to fix things so that it can just ripple into the middle?
It's really up to the teams and the local communities. We have been trying to get the word out to the legal community. There's something at my website at Foul Ball Safety Now. There's a pop-up that's hoping to find lawyers that are looking to work pro bono. Certainly, the first thing I would be sharing and demonstrating to them is of the ESPN video from 2019, which demonstrates today in between 30 and 40 cities with ballparks that have no netting past end of dugouts. And if that ballpark was in a state where they practice law, they should all get in a room, establish the theory. How are we going to go to court? How are we going to compel a particular agency to step up for the voiceless, maybe the children, to show that judge that video? The judge would respond, I would hope, saying, if this is happening in our city or state, this won't be happening anymore until something is done, or no children under 18 should be allowed to come. And that would be, I would think, an appropriate response. So that would be exciting to compel uh, clearly where it's so obvious and demonstrates horrific outcome when there's no netting past end of dugout. Now, for the other places, for the other 169 ballparks, this is not even including major leagues that don't have netting all the way around or above and beyond, because I don't exactly know what that standard is. There's no independent netting council that's required to step in and come in to endorse the business to be conducted as acceptable. So they're just putting netting up as they will. Some ballparks 45 minutes down the road from another ballpark, there's 169 professional ballparks. There may be one ballpark that has netting just at the end of the dugout, and then there's one ballpark that has netting further down towards the foul pole. But who's to say that balls aren't making their way over the nets? I could tell you about 2 children who were critically injured in 2023 during the minor leagues. I could tell you about a man who was blinded at a Pittsburgh Pirates game in 2023, supposedly a few years after MLB had done their upgrades. And one was in Peoria, Illinois, where this child was critically injured. There weren't nets extended further down at the time, and if there were, I don't know if it would have prevented that child from being critically injured. I had to call a hospital in Peoria, Illinois, and speak to the nurses station in the middle of the night and say, "Hey, would you be able to tell me anything about this particular person who we heard was in critical condition?" And luckily, the response I heard was a good response. It may have not been acceptable for her to respond to me because I wasn't a relative, but she said, "Well, this patient was in critical care, but she was upgraded to intermediate care." And that was my one call to the Peoria hospital, which told me at least the little girl was on the road to recovery, and I don't know if she's fully recovered. I tried to reach out to the family. I spoke to the gentleman's son who was blinded back in 2023, and at the time, the father who was blinded in one eye didn't want to talk with us. Brendan and I have interviewed 2 people who've been blinded in one eye, Rick and Jenny. And we've also interviewed Erwin Goldblum, whose wife was unfortunately struck and killed at the Dodger game. She was struck in the loge level. That was behind home plate, second level up at Dodger Stadium, where the nets were not high enough to block the ball from hitting Mrs. Goldblum's head. And it took a full calendar year, more or less, from August of 2018 till Labor Day 2019 for the nets to go higher. And nobody knew about Linda Goldblum's situation till early of the following year of 2019. We know, unfortunately, for the next 30 days at Dodger Stadium, nobody knew if they were sitting in that seat or in that row about what happened to Linda Goldblum. And it's just a matter of transparency. Winter after winter after winter, they could have shared more, and I don't think they have. And I think we're bringing an epiphany of awareness to this conversation. For the first time, people are learning of things they may have missed. And that's what we're trying to do over here, Mason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think the impact on anyone really, but especially the impact on children needs to be a talking point that's addressed more by the league and by anyone running these venues because, children have to be protected at all costs. If you're not making an effort, that should be a problem. I don't know whether it would be hashtags, other branching out to other social medias to try and increase even more awareness, but definitely more of a platform because we have to protect our children. Above all else, we have to protect people from events like this that could be easily avoided or, at the very least, made more minuscule, but children especially have to be a talking point at all times, have to protect them. And I wonder if, because from what it sounds like, it's a more common occurrence than should be comfortable at all with anyone. So I do feel like that should be a talking point that should be brought to the forefront to try and get people to wake up more. It's no different than things like the youth with marijuana or any kind of addiction, like big tobacco. I think that should be a driving point that kind of gets the point in, even if it takes some time.
Yes. We've been barking for a while here. I agree with pretty much everything you said. I think the conversation should have started with management and ownership for years and years. They've missed the boat. Better late than never. We are in Healthy Aggression and Foul Ball Safety Now. We hope we can all talk about in 10 years from now. Do you remember the dark ages in baseball back in 2025 when business as usual and important information was delivered or not a certain way? And I don't think it has been. And I think Brianna can elaborate certainly about the children perspective.
Yeah, I definitely can. I am a mother myself, and like Mason, you were just highlighting, it needs to be out there. It needs to be common knowledge, similar to big tobacco, how most people, if they're gonna decide to smoke a cigarette, most people have the knowledge of what that cigarette is gonna do to their body, and they get to make that decision as an adult of whether or not they wanna do that harm to their lungs, to their body. As a parent, before I came into contact with the campaign, I am not really a baseball fan by any means, so I would assume that I would have the knowledge of any parent who maybe grew up around baseball, and I live in a city where we have the Dodgers and the Angels. I'm in Los Angeles, so baseball is a very big part of LA culture. And I've been dragged to probably 10 or 12 games, either with family or friends, something to do. I think I would have definitely taken my kid to a baseball game thinking it was safe because not only does the MLB market towards children, but they have events specifically in nights that are designed for children. And they also have kids' playgrounds. At Dodger Stadium, they have a playground. You know what I mean? So, as a parent, you're walking into a place that's marketed for children, you're kind of relaxed a little bit. When I take my son to, say, a baby gym, there's no sharp corners and there's no outlets he can stick his finger into. The worst thing that could happen is maybe he whacks into another kid when they're running. I'm relaxed. At a baseball game, that is in no way, shape, or form the environment, and you should not be relaxed if you're there. You should and definitely not be relaxed if you're there with your children. So, the best thing I can do is try to educate people about this, but it is a hard pill to swallow because of how great the PR has been and how amazing the public image of professional baseball is. And it's really hard, I think, especially in our culture, to grapple with a tradition, baseball being over a century old and being such a big part of American culture. Being able to grapple with the fact that they're not behaving ethically.
We're not superheroes, Mason, and we're not there to once we get there to then be told, "Be careful of a ball may be coming at you." Even in front of your seat, there could be a cup holder and a sign next to the seat in front of you or where you're looking at the back of a seat where it says, "Be careful of a foul ball." The last I checked, we're not action figures and we're not superheroes and we're not there to defend our kids from these balls. So what does that mean to actually tell us that? Why are you telling us this now? And why didn't you educate us? And so be it. If you educated us, maybe agencies would have gotten in on this conversation and standards may have been met or set to to require full disclosure. Right? So that's what we're trying to do, Mason. We're just trying to effectively start a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Get more people talking. I do think even more exposure if possible. Like a lot of people in their 20s, early 30s, and younger, they're spending so much time on TikTok. I've been guilty of that a time or two myself. I feel like even creating a specific hashtag for it on socials like Instagram and TikTok, or even an ad on Snapchat, something like that,
Mhm.
that'll just grab the attention and maybe hit with the hardest thing first in a video
Right.
or advertisement about it. Like, you
Sure.
obviously you have to censor it, but you show right away just the impact, and then you're
Absolutely.
scare them a little bit, but for
Sure.
their own good.
Sure. We have a lot of ideas. It's about implementation and things that we want to do. We believe these conversations will bring curious listeners. And if it's the library constituents or the PBS constituents that are not on TikTok or Instagram, that's fine. If it's somebody from an agency, we had somebody on from an organization called OSHA who was coming on not as an OSHA employee, she was coming as a curious citizen, but who happened to be an OSHA employee. So that could be happening behind closed doors right now, that OSHA may be talking about, hey, there are people in the workplace that are being exposed to dangerous line drives. What are we going to do about it? How about those 14 and 15 and 16-year-old vendors working in these professional ballparks? It's probably their first job. They wouldn't think to call us, so maybe we need to step in. We certainly hope so, but we appreciate that, Mason. And of course, if you have any other ideas on to promote or get word out, we were really excited to hear that.
So you mentioned also
Yes.
within the reports, minor league ballparks too,
Yeah.
free admission for young children, nearby the playgrounds, family
Yeah.
picnics, all of that. Would you say that is as common or more common for occurrences, more exhibits, or is that mostly the major league stadiums? I feel like uh, smaller stadiums, it's probably a bit more common, just not as reported.
It's very interesting. We have not audited everything we can find. It's probably a very big task, but to find out what those 169 teams have been mentioning over the last 5 years in their marketing plan, I'm sure it's traceable if the right researcher got onto it. But we clearly do have proof about special nights for children, even special nights for pets. I think we identified each of these professional clubs having pet night, so you bring your dogs and cats. You never know, it may be some animal rights person who steps up and says, parents may wanna bring their kids to the game, but now that I know that pets are being exposed to this, well, my job is now to tell all those pet owners who are bringing their dogs to games and cats to games not to bring them anymore. So, human beings, living things are being exposed to dangerous missiles. And we want to finally tell people about it. We want to bring information to people who have missed a lot over the years and who are open-minded and discovering our research. So far, we feel like these conversations are those beginning of an effective conversation. We hope OSHA or any other agency says to us some point in time, "We should have got this memo 50 years ago." We'll be like, well, better late than never. Make an announcement retroactively that you should have known about this. MLB and professional baseball should have been more transparent, more upfront with what was really happening. Really, Exhibit A1 will take people down the rabbit hole for themselves to determine for their own selves, are our memories now tainted? Were we sitting ducks in the shooting gallery? Just how many times was it, we had gone to the games 8 times a year. So maybe on those other 50 times on those other home games, they may have missed a close call and then realize that close call could have come to them. Those people who have seen the close call for themselves, if that wasn't a wake-up call, and it's really not, when people, Mason, get almost creamed by a foul ball, nobody usually leaves. They probably hope it won't happen again. Maybe they think that was like a rare incident. But I would have been, well, you see, I come from it from a more biased or a more aware point of view. I certainly had preconceived ideas about the danger of foul balls before 2019, but we believe most baseball fans don't. And it may be that close call that either wakes them up to the fact, but why should it be that close call that wakes them up to the fact? Or they're not woken enough to be like, what the heck are we doing here? It's just a combination of things that will come out when we have an effective conversation. It's just the three of us talking. So we, of course, invite agencies and entities and individuals to join and figure it out for themselves about what their own experiences were like or what the agency's appropriate response should have been. So we excited to keep on going. That's what we're doing.
And you guys are doing a great job, and you're reaching out to other platforms pretty well. Like, I had no idea about this. I had no idea this was such a problem until we had our conversation. And I looked at your site, I looked at your socials, and I'm like, wow, okay. I did not know this was a thing, but more people need to know. And, because I found you guys through Backstage and interviewed from there. That's a good tactic, a smart tactic. I was actually just after an audition, and then I saw your guys' posting on Backstage. I'm like, okay,
Hmm.
I want to learn more about this. And I'm glad I did because it's more of a problem than I thought. I mean, I've been to a game in the Denver Stadium when I was about 10. One of my friends in Jersey, he's actually umpire, so I could reach out to him too, be like, "Hey, did you know about this? You should check this out because you're actually staff in the games. You need to check this out. You need to be aware too."
Yes, and unfortunately, this umpire, maybe it wasn't your friend because it was Hunter Wendelstadt. We have Exhibit A2. He was struck with the line drive. So this whole idea of pay attention, be careful when you're sitting in a seat 100 feet away. What about Hunter Wendelstadt, who's an umpire? Home to first, it's 90 feet. He's another 10 feet behind the base, give or take. That's 100 feet away. And who's paying attention more than an umpire staring at the pitch, staring at the swing, and he gets hit right between the eyes, right in the head. So what about the people that are exposed to the sides 100 feet away? We don't have a chance. All this stuff about paying attention, all of this stuff should have been part of education prior to coming to games. Family really being informed about what was. And if agencies learned about this years ago, they probably would have been more standards in place, conversations about where the kids can come. If the adults wanted to flirt with the danger element, just tell them about it and maybe that would be okay. But again, we would at least know it's like there is an environment like a danger like running with bulls in Spain where it's evident. Here, we're coming to the game not thinking anything like that. We're at the game. They made sales of an announcement, but nobody's leaving on announcements, and we're not supposed to be getting to the game and then leaving soon after the announcement. Again, we're going to put these conversations out there to pediatricians and lawyers and like minded baseball fans and hopefully agencies and let everyone join in from their own personal experiences to what an agency's appropriate response should be now and then and in the future. So we believe that all the victims we've come across, because we've had personal stories and we've got to know these folks, they deserve some reconciliation. The baseball players themselves, they've been bearing the burden because they've been going to work, and part of their community will be somebody eventually hurting someone seriously, similar to the Queens College matter. People can look into that. So I believe human beings are decent people, and unfortunately, I feel like the young adults and the adults within the game of baseball have kind of been compromised, and we should take the burden off their shoulders. It's been going on, and 30 baseball players will talk to Brendan and I and give us a sense of their own accountable time in the game when they were players themselves, about telling their own families to sit in certain sections, but at the same time, they're going to work and they know one of the guys are gonna eventually do some serious damage. That's not a good thing to carry on your shoulders. So we have something called the Healing Project because we believe most baseball players will eventually want to talk with us and tell us their own turmoil or their own role or their own way of sweeping it under the rug while they were players. Because the writing is on the wall. And please, everyone, look at the 2019 ESPN video from 2019, 5-minute video that demonstrates all the damage done to people. And once that was shown to the world, it should have been addressed, all of it at the time. But we're working here and we're going to continue working, Mason.
Yeah, and you guys are doing a really good job. I mean, you've outreached. I imagine you go 6 years back, you probably never imagined you'd be where you are now. But you guys have definitely made some growth, and the impact may not be immediately obvious, but I have a good idea. I have a good feeling that as more time goes on, as things develop, more and more people are going to be aware. And, even the people you interview, no matter how small, like I've sent the website to some of my friends, some of my family. That would be good for them just to have in their knowledge because sometimes that's how it starts, just a bunch of tiny little sparks to eventually get that fire going.
Well, we appreciate that. We know there's a place somewhere in Cooperstown for this story to be told over the next 100 years. It would start off as a healing project and a work in progress, but we hope it would transition into some sort of remembrance, a permanent remembrance for the dark legacy of foul balls. And we can't think of a better place to do it than up in Cooperstown, New York, where the Baseball Hall of Fame is. We would convert one of those souvenir stores, may not be a large exhibit like the Baseball Hall of Fame would be, but at least people who are visiting Cooperstown every year will have an opportunity to walk in. Certainly, if it opened up soon, it would be almost like the foul ball center, foul ball safety learning exhibit, ongoing dilemma, problems, etc. Hopefully, it would transition into more of a place of remembrance, but it has its history. We think it needs to be told. Pe-
Absolutely.
People will go in thinking one thing, come out thinking something else. They're there already. They could decide for themselves on how they want to feel about it once we display it. And that's what we're going to eventually get to as well. But this is just a great opportunity to turn everyone on.
All right, Mason. So, as a content creator and a voice actor, do you think that we can use emotion and storytelling to wake people up to the truth? And how do you think we can do that?
I think so. I think if you were able to, if we started like a fundraiser almost, even to buy a cheap little ad, you get nice, like those, like going back to the tobacco videos, it's like, oh, like smoking not even once kind of thing. And just showing the dangers, creating television ads or with how things are right now, ads on videos, other social media that will just grab attention. If we were able to get a fundraiser up so we could fund an ad, use footage that's already been made before, that already exists out there that you guys have put out, and just doing a narration over that and being like, this could be your child. And it's because the MLB has not bothered to extend their netting. Foul balls are a real danger. Something like that, I think that would be a great next step if possible. And like I said, just exploring following the youth because the youth is very much central to getting things spread. And we've seen that before with so many different trends, good or bad, and other things, targeting them because usually they tend to be more open minded. They haven't, they aren't in their 60s or 50s. They haven't been with baseball as long. They're more willing to listen. So I think making advertisements, even if they're cheap advertisements, targeting the youth on other platforms like YouTube, TikTok, areas like that, I think that will begin to make momentum and start to make real change because if you have a group of passionate, youthful people, they are going to do everything they can to make it explode and make awareness absolutely explode because it'll start somewhere as small as like TikTok, and then it'll explode to their Instagram, to their Twitter, or I guess X. Everywhere they can spread it, they will absolutely do that.
All right. That's great. We really, really appreciate this. This is always new information and new perspectives that we hear at Foul Ball Safety Now on these talks. And I really want to thank Mason and Brianna. And I think this was really a good talk. So thank you again, people, everyone listening. And we will be recording very soon again as we're into the playoffs, going into the World Series. And thank you again for joining us at Foul Ball Safety Now Talks.